Instead to our panel. Joining us today, the Labor strategist Bruce Hawker and the Sky News contributor Grahame Morris. Gents, thank you for joining us. Good to have you with us. I'm keen to start on domestic politics. The Australian newspaper had a story today about the Information Commissioner rejecting Malcolm Turnbull's bid to keep his official diary under wraps. Now, the Information Commissioner doesn't believe disclosure would damage government relations or infringe on Mr Turnbull's personal privacy. I know both of you have worked very closely with Prime Ministers over the years. Let's start with you, Grahame. Should our politicians' diaries be kept secret? What's the harm in releasing them?
I think it's a bloody stupid idea. You know, a Prime Minister has to be able to talk to people confidentially. You know, it doesn't matter whether it's a Liberal Prime Minister talking to a businessman who was saying, look, on Tuesday I might announce a big takeover or a merger, or him talking to his colleagues, or a future Labor Party a Prime Minister talking to some whistleblower. And all of a sudden this is documented and out in the public. It's just silly. And then people are saying, oh, it's the only official diary. It's only the official diary. Well, there's no unofficial diary. And the way everyone would just get around it, instead of having meetings, you just pick up the phone and talk to people, so it's not going to work anyway. I think it's an absolutely dumb idea. Politicians, and particularly the Prime Minister, need to have confidential meetings, and it's nobody else's business.
Bruce Hawker, compared with the US, our politicians do seem to have a lot of privacy. There's an expectation in the US, of course, that a pool reporter goes wherever the president is and knows, you know, every movement of the day. That seems a bit over the top. But here in Australia, do you agree with Grahame? Why shouldn't we have full disclosure so we can see who the Prime Minister's meeting with and when?
Well, I think there's obviously a case for saying that in every instance you shouldn't have full disclosure at the time. Although I think there are very good arguments to say that unless there were very significant security or other compelling reasons that they should actually release that information a little bit further down the line, and that would overcome a lot of those problems. I think in the UK now, politicians' diaries, certainly the Prime Minister's diaries, are very public, and in New South Wales, I think 3 months after a minister has met with somebody, that they're required to actually release their diary and who they met with and the circumstances of the meeting. Some of this obviously can be avoided if people really are determined to do so, but I don't think in principle it's a bad idea for the public and the media to have a pretty fair idea about who's walking through the doors at any particular time, provided that we don't run into issues about security and personal safety and sometimes commercially confidential information.
You mentioned New South Wales, and keen for both of your thoughts as to what sort of direction New South Wales will be heading in now. We've seen the Liberal Party's first Premier sworn in Gladys Berejiklian in that state this afternoon. Grahame Morris, would she be wise to take a step back on some of the more controversial policies that Mike Baird had prosecuted? Do you believe that the Liberals' chances for the 2019 election have been significantly diminished as a result of the change at the top?
Look, Gladys has been tremendously successful to date. As Treasurer, she's turned an entire state around. Look, she's very bright. She is good at detail. She's obviously a successful politician. And I know her personally. She's a very, very nice person who is interested in what people have to say, even what I have to say. Look, I think she'll do well. And you know, on a sort of another note, she's one of the few women in this country who have been handed a government in good shape and in winnable positions. You think of Joan Kerner and Carmen Lawrence and Christina Keneally have all been handed these cot cases. Look, now is the time for Premier Berejiklian to take a stand on things that she believes in and to junk things that she thinks are a problem. You can't do it later. But I hope that she also has a good, strong backbone, because not everything that the former government did should be ditched. Most of it was pretty good.
Bruce Hawker, is Labor feeling buoyed by the change, do you think?
Look, I think they're being very careful, and as they should be, because I don't think you should take any incoming Premier lightly. Gladys Berejiklian is a likeable person. I think she could present well to the public. And in my dealings with her, she's only ever been extremely polite and decent. So she's got all those good social qualities, which I think would hold her in good stead. However, there is a good reason why Premier Mike Baird was dropping so quickly in popularity in New South Wales, and that's because there are a number of policies that he had introduced which were very unpopular. One of those is council amalgamations. They never go down well, and they can cause real problems, particularly in rural areas. Now, we're seeing the Deputy Premier saying that they're going to change some of those things, but as far as I know, it's only in rural New South Wales, not in metropolitan New South Wales. So that's an area where she's still going to be criticised if she doesn't do anything. She also recently said she accepted full responsibility for cost overruns in the Metro Light Rail scheme, project, which has been introduced into Sydney, and I think she'll probably regret having said that, because she'll be held to account for that.
Ashley, the Armenian community has given the US, the Kardashians, it's given the Brits, Princess Di's great-great-grandmother, and now has given us Premier Gladys and formerly Treasurer Joe Hockey. I think we got the best of the deal.
Well, I think she's a very
Graham, I know you've just been waiting. You've been practicing that line, haven't you?
And who? Can you tell us who?
Graham,
can you tell us who?
On the point.
Sorry, go on. Sorry.
I was going to say on the point that you just made then, Bruce, about the council amalgamations, just how politically damaging has that been, do you think, Grahame Morris, there in New South Wales?
I think the National Party have misread Orange. The idea that everyone in Orange voted the way they did because of amalgamations is just plain stupid. Nobody in Orange cared. It's a couple of the little shires around Orange would have cared, but the Nats have got it wrong. There is a very good case. You could redraw some of the boundaries around the state, that'd be fine. But the idea that you don't do amalgamations at local government is just really poor policy. It is time some of them merge. It's silly. Just, all of these little places having graders and workforces and councillors and shire presidents. It's time some of them did merge.
And the problem, of course, there is that when you do go ahead with those sorts of policies, services can be severely affected as well, and people in those communities know that. I mean, the result of the by-election in Orange was probably a combination of the Greyhounds decision, which went very badly out there, and another bad decision of Mike Baird, which was overturned by him subsequently, and also council amalgamations, and a sense in regional New South Wales that the proceeds from the sale of electricity assets are largely being spent in metropolitan Sydney on projects like West Connect and the light rail project and so forth. That's not a good look for this government in regional New South Wales, particularly at a time when One Nation is starting to reassert itself.
Speaking of change at the top, I'm keen for your views. We can't go past, of course, new President Donald Trump. Graham, how do you rate his first couple of days in office? What did you think of that speech?
Well, I think everyone thought that when he became president, he would adjust his approach. I don't think he's changed one blinking thing. Donald, the candidate, looks like
that
being
was pretty naive,
exactly
wasn't
the
it?
same.
I mean, that's right.
Yeah, Donald, the president, is almost exactly the same. His issues are the same. He's saying the same thing. His approach is the same. His hatred of Washington is the same. But I'll tell you what annoys me. All of these geniuses who are marching up and down in Washington and the media saying, hey, isn't this a big protest? Donald Trump in Washington, D.C. got 4% of the vote. 4%. So let's say the vote was in, Middle America or down south. It would have been completely reversed. And some of these women protesters are protesting about how Trump treats people. If they went to Syria or Afghanistan or whatnot and tried to protest, then I think we'd all give a damn and be behind them. But when they're walking up and down Washington, you know, as many of them as wealthy millionaire celebrities, who gives a damn?
Well,
Grahame, I think you're being a bit unfair there. It wasn't just Washington. It was,
No.
I mean, the rallies we saw in Chicago were unbelievable when you saw the pictures there, and we saw a huge turnout here in Australia as well. I don't think it's an either or of Syrians
not in the
or,
Midwest,
gender
or is it?
rights in the US.
No. It was all in sort of the Clinton heartland. None of it was in Trump land.
Well, and I think that's true. I think it's a nation which is divided right down the middle now, and it can only augur badly, I think, for America in the medium term, in terms just of the way in which people relate to one another.
I agree. I think he's going to be very divisive,
yeah.
And I just can't see that divide healing. So, you know, you're going to have Trump versus everyone else. And then we'll see how he goes.
And I think, you know, the idea that Trump could turn around his appeal and just sort of pretend that it didn't happen is pretty naive, because in a sense he's got the tiger by the tail, hasn't he? He created this creature. We went out there and whipped up sentiment around unemployment and jobs going to other countries and so forth. And now, of course, and building walls between America and Mexico, he can't just walk away from those people who voted for him without creating a huge mess for himself, because all the others hate him already, and if he walks away from the people that did vote for him, no one's going to like him. I think even though I don't think his real instincts were like that previously, I think his politics is going to take him down that path for the foreseeable future. It's going to be a really rough ride. Strap on, you know, it's going to be really hard.
Yeah, and look, speaking of groups that hate him, well, you can put the media in that column as well. Grahame, it's quite extraordinary seeing this all-out war now between the press and the Trump administration in the US. Of course, the first news conference held by his White House spokesperson went down like a lead balloon. As a journalist, I'm happy for you to say that I'm biased, but I find it quite horrifying to see the way that relationship has deteriorated to a point where we don't seem to be able to get the facts, the truth, from a White House spokesperson.
Yeah, look, I'm an ex-journalist too, and I don't like what's happened, but he actually has shown that you can become president of the United States without the media. And he sort of has got to this position. He does not owe the media anything. And that is continuing. I thought by now, you know, maybe he'd calm down, or he'd have a chief spokesperson who would, you know, act a bit more calmly. But no, his chief spokesperson's gone even harder. So we're going to have this media war right through. You could understand for the first 2 or 3 years, it sort of doesn't matter. But in 4 years' time, when he's looking to be re-elected, he probably will need the media, and he's going to have to adjust. Otherwise, they'll just kill him.
Yeah, and I think this is it also raises, Ash, the whole issue of social media too, and how the conventional media deals with that, because you know, as we've been hearing for quite a while now, you know, we're living in a post-factual society. Anyone can go out and put anything on the internet, and it's picked up and presented as if it's true. Fake news. Fake statements or false statements by his press secretary about how many people were actually at the rally and so forth. And it seems that there's this whole alternative social media that drives people's sentiment around these issues, which has got no relationship to the facts. And this is going to be a huge challenge for our democratic systems. And the media is at the core of a democracy. And you know, if the media ceases to be relevant, then you might as well be living in China. That's the tragedy of this.
Bruce Hawker, Grahame Morris, we are out of time. We do appreciate your insights as